Michelle's fingers were slipping, the cold iron rail of the old bridge cut into her skin, and the river below roared like an angry animal rushing over brown stones. "Help me," she screamed, her voice cracking. "Please, somebody." A piece of her blouse was hooked on a sharp, rusty iron at the edge of the bridge, caught like a nail through cloth, holding her in the air. Not safe, not strong, just one thin thread between life and death. Above her, on the untarred road, Lola stood with both hands on the bridge rail, breathing fast. Michelle looked up through tears. Her eyes begged. Lola didn't beg back. She smiled, not a small smile. Not an "I made a mistake" smile. A smile like someone who had been waiting for this day. "You think your father will choose you over me again?" Lola whispered, leaning closer so only Michelle could hear. "Today, you will finally stop breathing my air." Michelle's lips shook. "Auntie Lola, why? What did I do?" Lola's face tightened, like a rope pulling. "You exist. That is what you did." Michelle tried to pull herself up, but the cloth tore a little more. "Reap!" Her heart slammed in her chest. The river looked so far, but also so close. One more tear, one more rip, one more second. Lola adjusted her faded blue Ankara wrapper and smirked again, like she was cleaning her hands without water. Then she turned. She didn't even wait to hear a splash. She didn't even look back to check if Michelle fell. She just walked away, fast, her slippers kicking small stones on the road as she hurried into the bush path that led back toward their community. Michelle cried harder, "Please, I will be quiet. I will stay out of your way. Just help me." But Lola's back was already facing her. The last thing Michelle saw was Lola's shoulders rising and falling, like someone who felt light, as if she had just dropped a heavy load into the river. Michelle's tears mixed with dust on her face. Her arms shook. Her stomach twisted. She knew something scary. Lola wasn't just angry. Lola had planned this. And if nobody came soon... Michelle swallowed and screamed again, louder than before. "Help! I'm here! Please!" Her voice echoed off the trees and died in the wind. And then, the blouse tore again. Reap! Michelle's body dropped lower. Her feet kicked empty air. Her fingers slipped. Her eyes squeezed shut. "This is it," she whispered. But at that exact moment, a deep engine sound rolled up the road. Not a motorcycle, not a small car. A strong, steady sound, like a powerful animal climbing a hill. Michelle forced her eyes open. Through her tears, she saw it. A dark SUV. It was slowing down. The tires crunched on loose sand and gravel. The vehicle came to a full stop just a few meters from the bridge. Michelle didn't know who was inside. She didn't know if they would help. She only knew one thing. If that car drove away, she was done. So she gathered every breath she had left and screamed one last time, "Please, I'm under here." The SUV's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad, dressed neatly like someone important, but his face looked tired in a quiet way. The kind of tired you don't fix with sleep. He walked toward the bridge, confused at first, then he heard her crying. He rushed. "What is that?" he said sharply. "Who is there?" "Sir," Michelle cried, "I'm hanging. Please help me." The man's eyes widened. He ran to the rail and looked down. His expression changed instantly. Not fear, not disgust, pure alarm. "Jesus, hold on," he barked. Michelle's fingers were burning now. Her arms felt like noodles. Her blouse was barely holding. The man dropped to his knees and reached down, but the gap was awkward. He looked around quickly like his mind was working fast, and then he turned and shouted toward the SUV. "Uche," he yelled, "come, quick." Another man jumped out from the driver's seat, younger, wearing a simple shirt. He ran toward the bridge. "What happened, Chief?" the driver asked, panicking. "There's a girl hanging under the bridge," the older man snapped. "Bring the rope from the boot, now." Michelle heard the word chief and blinked. A chief. A real chief. Her eyes blurred again, not just from tears, from shock. The younger man sprinted back to the SUV and opened the boot. He pulled out a thick rope, the kind used for heavy loads. Chief Benson, because that was who he was, wrapped one end around the bridge rail and tied it fast with hands that didn't shake. Like he had done hard things before. "Listen to me," he called down. "Don't fight the rope. I will pull you up slowly. Do you understand? Michelle nodded quickly, even though he could barely see her head. Yes, sir. Please. Chief Benson lay flat on his stomach and lowered the rope down. Grab it, he said, voice firm. Grab it with both hands. Michelle tried to reach, but her arm shook too much. She missed the rope the first time. Her heart stopped. I can't, she cried. My hands. Look at me, Chief Benson said, voice suddenly softer but strong, like a father talking to a child in danger. Look at me. You can do it. Don't look at the river. I'd look at the rope. Michelle forced her eyes away from the rushing water. She focused. She reached again. Her fingers touched the rope, then she grabbed it with both hands and held on like it was the last thing in the world. Good, Chief Benson said. Now I'll pull, slowly. The younger man, Uche, grabbed the rope too. 1, 2, pull. They pulled together. Michelle's body rose inch by inch. Her blouse tore more, but the rope was now taking the weight. She kept crying. But now it wasn't only fear. It was relief. It was disbelief. It was the kind of crying that says, I didn't think I would live. When her head reached the edge of the bridge, Chief Benson reached down and grabbed her wrist. Hold tight, he grunted. Uche held his belt and pulled him back to keep him from slipping. Chief Benson used all his strength and dragged Michelle over the rail and onto the road. Michelle collapsed on the sand, coughing and shaking. For a moment, she could not even stand. She pressed her forehead to the ground and breathed like she had been running for hours. Chief Benson crouched beside her. Easy, he said, breathing hard. You're safe now. Michelle looked up at him. His face had lines, small ones, like he had seen sadness before, but his eyes were kind. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Chief Benson glanced at her blouse, the ripped, muddy cloth, the torn sleeve, the dust and tears on her face. Then he looked up at the bridge, then down toward the river again, as if he was picturing what almost happened. Who did this to you? He asked, voice low. Michelle's mouth opened, but no words came out. Because if she said the name, it would become real. It would become a fight. And she was only a girl. She swallowed. I slipped, she lied, her voice small. Chief Benson didn't believe her. You could tell by the way his eyes narrowed and by how quiet he became. And he turned his head slightly and looked down the road, the direction Lola had gone. Then he faced Michelle again. Do you have parents? He asked. Michelle nodded slowly. My father, Donald. And your mother? Michelle's throat tightened. She died, she whispered. Chief Benson's face softened in a way that looked like pain. He didn't push the question. He just nodded once. Where is your home? He asked. Michelle hesitated. If he took her home, Lola would be there. Lola would smile again. Lola would say, next time, nobody will stop the splash. Michelle's hand started shaking again, not from hanging, this time from remembering Lola's eyes. I don't want to go back, she admitted, voice breaking. Please. Chief Benson studied her. A long pause. The wind blew dust across the road. The river kept rushing under the bridge like nothing happened. Then Chief Benson stood up and made a decision. Uche, he said, open the back door. Uche did it quickly. Chief Benson helped Michelle to her feet. She nearly fell, but he supported her. You are coming with me, he said. Michelle blinked. To where? To my house, he replied, like it was the most normal thing in the world. You will eat, you will bathe, you will rest. Then we will talk. Michelle's eyes widened. She didn't know him, but she knew one thing. His voice didn't sound like a man who would throw a child away. So she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Chief Benson put her gently into the SUV and shut the door. As the car started moving, Michelle looked out the window. The bridge faded behind them. The river disappeared from view. Her chest finally loosened a little, but then a new fear rose like a shadow. Because Lola was going to notice. And Lola was going to ask questions. And when Lola realized Michelle did not die, Michelle squeezed her hands together in her lap, staring at the road ahead. Her heart said something she didn't want to believe. If Lola could push her once, Lola could try again. The SUV drove faster, leaving the community road behind. Chief Benson sat in front, silent, his jaw tight like he was thinking deeply. He kept glancing at the mirror to check on her. Michelle swallowed and spoke softly, almost like she was afraid the words would break the air. "Sir, why did you stop?" Chief Benson's eyes met hers in the mirror. He hesitated, and then his voice came out rough. "Because," he said slowly, "I know what it feels like to lose someone in a way you can never fix." Michelle didn't understand, but she felt the weight of it. And then he added, quieter, "And because, today, I refuse to lose another child." Michelle's breath caught. A child? Her? She wanted to ask more, but her voice refused to work. The SUV turned onto a bigger road leading toward town. Then, as if the day had not already been frightening enough, Michelle saw something that made her stomach drop. In the side mirror, far behind them, dust rose from the untarred road. A motorcycle was speeding after them, fast, too fast. Michelle leaned forward, fear sharpening her eyes. "Sir," she whispered urgently, "someone is following us." Chief Benson's face hardened. Uche looked in the mirror too and cursed under his breath. "Chief," Uche said, "that bike has been behind us since the bridge." Chief Benson's voice turned cold and focused. "Hold on," he told Michelle, and the SUV suddenly picked up speed. Michelle's mouth went dry. Her fingers gripped the seat, because she didn't know who was on that bike, but deep in her heart, she feared she already did. The motorcycle was gaining on them. Michelle's heart beat so loudly she could hear it in her ears. The SUV sped past palm trees and small roadside stalls selling plantain and roasted corn. Dust rose behind them like smoke. "Chief, he's still coming," Uche said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Chief Benson turned slightly and looked through the back window. His eyes narrowed. "Don't panic," he said calmly. "Stay steady." Michelle pressed her forehead against the window. Her fingers trembled. The motorcycle rider wore a helmet. She couldn't see his face. But she knew that feeling in her stomach. It was the same feeling she had when Lola called her name in that soft fake voice. The bike moved closer. Closer. Then suddenly the road split into two directions, one leading toward Warrytown, the other toward a smaller village road filled with potholes. "Take the town road," Chief Benson ordered. Uche swerved smoothly toward Warry. The SUV engine roared louder. The motorcycle tried to follow, but a heavy truck loaded with cement bags turned sharply into the road behind them, blocking the bike for a few seconds. Just enough. The truck slowed the motorcycle. The SUV pulled farther ahead. Michelle kept staring back. The motorcycle was still there, but now smaller, then gone. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Chief Benson looked at her through the mirror again. "You are safe," he said firmly. Michelle nodded, but something inside her whispered, "Not yet." Back at home, Lola walked into the compound slowly, pretending to look tired. The small house stood in a quiet part of the community. The zinc roof shined under the sun. A wooden ladder leaned against the side of the house where Donald had been working earlier that morning. Donald was sitting on a small stool, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked up. "Where is Michelle?" he asked. Lola didn't even blink. "She said she was going to buy kerosene," Lola replied casually. I sent her to the junction." Donald frowned. "It's been long." Lola shrugged and dropped a bowl into the basin with a loud clang. "You know that girl," she said, "always smiling at boys. Maybe she followed one." Donald's face tightened. "Michelle is not like that." Lola laughed softly, a short, dry sound. "You don't see what I see," she replied. "Since her mother died, she behaves like she owns this house." Donald looked hurt. Sandra. Even the name brought silence between them. In Sandra, his late wife. Sandra, who gave birth to Michelle before falling sick. Sandra, who used to sing in the kitchen while cooking. Lola folded her arms. "Maybe she has finally run away," Lola added. "Girls these days." Donald stood up suddenly. "Don't say that," he snapped. Lola stepped back, pretending to be shocked. "I'm just saying what people will say," she muttered. Donald grabbed his cap and rushed toward the road. "Michelle," he shouted as he walked quickly toward the junction, and he searched near the small shops. He asked neighbors. Nobody had seen her. The sun began to set. Donald's steps became slower. "Michelle!" he shouted again, but this time his voice cracked. Lola watched from a distance, pretending to look worried. Inside, her heart felt light. She believed the river had swallowed Michelle. She believed the problem was over. That night, Donald did not eat. He sat outside under the mango tree, staring at the darkness. "Maybe she went with someone," Lola repeated softly. Donald shook his head. "No," he whispered, "my daughter would not leave me." But doubt slowly entered his chest like smoke. The next morning, Donald climbed onto the roof of a house he was working on. He was a carpenter. Roofing was his job. But his mind was not on the work. It was on Michelle. Where was she? Was she hungry? Was she crying? Was she alive? His hands trembled as he hammered a nail. He missed. The hammer slipped. His foot shifted. The zinc sheet bent under him. "Ah!" someone shouted below. Donald tried to regain balance, but his mind was heavy. The world spun. Then he fell. He fell hard. The men below screamed. Dust rose. Donald hit the ground with a sickening thud. He didn't move. Meanwhile, the SUV stopped in front of a large gate in GRA Warri. Michelle stared at the tall cream-colored building inside the compound. It looked like something from television. Security guards opened the gate quickly when they saw the vehicle. "Welcome back, Chief," one of them greeted. Chief Benson stepped out first, then opened Michelle's door. She hesitated before stepping down. Everything felt too big, too clean, too safe. She looked down at her torn blouse and dirty feet. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Chief Benson heard her. "You belong wherever you are respected," he replied gently. He led her inside. The house smelled like polished wood and fresh air. Large framed pictures hung on the walls. Michelle's eyes landed on one picture. A smiling woman stood beside Chief Benson. Two small children stood in front of them. They looked happy. Michelle noticed something. Chief Benson's smile in that picture was brighter than the one he wore now. "Your family?" she asked quietly. Chief Benson stopped walking. For a second, his shoulders dropped. "Yes," he said, and he swallowed before continuing. "They died in a plane crash, London to Lagos, 5 years ago." Michelle's breath caught. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "After that day," he said softly, "this house became too quiet." He looked at her. Maybe today, God decided it should not be quiet anymore. Michelle didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken about her like she mattered. A housemaid rushed forward. "Bring her clean clothes," Chief Benson instructed. "And food." Michelle blinked. "Sir, why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Chief Benson looked straight at her. "Because someone should have helped my children that day," he answered. Silence filled the room. Then Michelle did something she hadn't done since her mother died. She cried into someone's chest, and this time nobody pushed her away. Back at the hospital, Donald slowly opened his eyes. Everything looked blurry. His head throbbed. "Ah, Michelle?" he whispered weakly. Lola stood beside the hospital bed. She forced tears into her eyes. "You fell," she said softly. "You were calling her name." Donald tried to sit up. "Where is she?" he asked again. Lola held his hand. "She has not returned," she replied. Donald blinked. The room felt darker than it should. "Why is it so dark?" he asked. The doctor entered quietly. He looked serious. "Sir," the doctor said gently, "you hit your head very hard." Donald swallowed. "Why is it dark?" he repeated. The doctor paused. "You have damage to your optic nerves," he explained carefully. You have lost your sight." Silence. Lola gasped dramatically. Donald froze. His world became completely still. "No," he whispered. The darkness did not move. He waved his hand in front of his face. Nothing, no shadow, no light, only black. He screamed. The scream echoed through the hospital corridor, and far away, in a big house in Warri, Michelle suddenly woke up from sleep, her heart pounding for no reason. As if somewhere, someone she loved had just entered permanent darkness, and she didn't even know it. Michelle woke up slowly. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. The bed felt too soft. The room smelled like fresh soap and flowers instead of smoke and kerosene. Sunlight slipped gently through wide curtains, touching the cream-colored walls. A ceiling fan rotated quietly above her. She blinked, then sat up suddenly. The bridge, the river, Lola's smile. Her chest tightened. She looked down at herself. Clean pajamas, no mud, no torn blouse, no dust. Everything felt unreal. A soft knock came at the door. "Good morning," a woman's voice said gently. A middle-aged housemaid entered carrying a tray. "My name is Mama Grace," she said warmly. "Chief said you should eat first before anything." Michelle stared at the tray. Eggs, bread, tea, fruit. A food she had only seen during Christmas celebrations. Her stomach growled loudly. She felt embarrassed. Mama Grace smiled knowingly. "Eat," she said kindly. "Nobody will beat you here." The words hit Michelle harder than expected. "Nobody will beat you here?" Her eyes filled with tears again. She nodded and began eating slowly at first, then faster. Mama Grace watched quietly. After a while she said, "Chief Benson has been waiting in the sitting room." Michelle wiped her mouth quickly. Fear returned. Was she in trouble? Would he send her back home? Her heart began racing again. Chief Benson sat beside a large window, reading documents. He looked different in daylight, strong, calm, but carrying invisible sadness. When Michelle entered, he closed the file immediately. "Good morning, Michelle." She froze. He remembered her name. "Good morning, sir," she replied softly. He gestured toward the chair opposite him. "Sit." Michelle sat carefully, her hands folded tightly. Chief Benson studied her for a moment, not like someone judging her, but like someone trying to understand a story written on her face. "Tell me the truth," he said gently. "Who pushed you?" Michelle's heart skipped. She stared at the floor, her lips trembled. She wanted to protect her father, she wanted peace. But the image of Lola turning away returned, and something inside her finally broke. "My stepmother," she whispered. Chief Benson did not look surprised. "Oh, what is her name?" "Lola." "Why?" Michelle swallowed. "She said my father loved me too much." The room became very quiet. Chief Benson leaned back slowly. Pain flashed across his face, not anger, recognition. "I see," he said quietly. He remained silent for a long time before speaking again. "Michelle, if you go back home now, will you be safe?" Michelle shook her head immediately. "No, sir." Her answer came too quickly, too honestly. Chief Benson nodded. "Then you will not go back," he said simply. Michelle looked up sharply. "Sir." "You will stay here," he continued. "You will go to school. You will live like a child should live." Michelle's eyes widened. She thought she heard wrong. "School?" she repeated. "Yes." Her throat tightened. She had stopped attending school months ago because Lola said education was a waste for a girl. Tears rolled down Michelle's face again. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked. And Chief Benson looked toward the photograph on the wall, the one with his late wife and children. "When I lost my family," he said slowly, "I asked God one question every night." He paused. "Why leave me alive?" He turned back to Michelle. "Yesterday I think I got my answer." Michelle cried openly now, for the first time since her mother Sandra died. Someone chose her. Not out of duty, not out of pity, but out of love. Donald sat quietly on a wooden chair outside their house. But now, he could not see the mango tree. He could not see the road. He could not see the sky. Only darkness, permanent darkness. Neighbors passed, whispering. That carpenter that lost his daughter. Such a tragedy. Lola guided him carefully. "Sit here," she said sweetly. Her voice sounded caring, too caring. Inside, however, fear had started growing in her chest. Michelle never returned. Days passed. No body was found, no news, no witnesses. At night, Lola sometimes woke up sweating. She kept seeing Michelle's fingers gripping the rail. She kept hearing invisible crying. But she told herself the river took her. It must have. It had to. Because if Michelle survived, Lola pushed the thought away. Michelle stood at the gate of one of the best secondary schools in Delta State. Students walked in neat uniforms. Cars dropped children off. Laughter filled the air. Michelle held her new school bag tightly. She felt small, out of place. Chief Benson stood beside her. "Oh, nervous?" he asked. She nodded. What if they don't like me? He smiled gently. Then they will learn. Michelle laughed softly. It felt strange hearing herself laugh again. Before leaving, Chief Benson said something she would never forget. Your past is not your future. Walk inside like you belong there. Michelle took a deep breath, then she stepped forward. Every step felt like crossing into another life. And she didn't know yet that this moment would begin a transformation nobody, including Lola, could ever imagine. The healing year's time began to move quickly. Michelle studied harder than anyone else. She woke early. She read late. She never wasted food. She never complained. Teachers noticed. Classmates respected her, but sometimes at night she still woke up afraid. She still saw the river, still heard Lola's voice. Chief Benson noticed. One evening he found her sitting alone in the garden. Still remembering? He asked. Michelle nodded. I don't hate her, she said quietly. I just don't understand how someone can want you gone. Chief Benson sat beside her. Pain makes some people become better, he said. Others gotta become cruel. Michelle looked at him. Which one will I become? He smiled. That choice is yours every day. She thought about that for a long time, and slowly. Michelle chose kindness. She helped weaker students. She tutored classmates. She volunteered at charity visits Chief Benson sponsored. People began calling her Chief's daughter. The name felt strange at first, but warm, safe, like home. Donald's blindness changed everything. He could no longer work. He depended on neighbors for help. At night, he called Michelle's name softly. Sometimes Lola heard him crying when he thought she was asleep. My daughter. Forgive me, he whispered one night. Lola froze on her mat. A guilt pierced her chest sharply, but pride kept her silent. She told herself she had done what was necessary. Still, the darkness inside the house grew heavier every day. Michelle graduated from secondary school with outstanding results. The day results were announced, Chief Benson hugged her tightly. I am proud of you, he said, voice thick with emotion. Michelle smiled. Thank you, Dad. The words slipped out naturally. She froze, worried she had crossed a line. But Chief Benson's eyes filled with tears. He nodded slowly. I have waited years to hear that again. From that day, Michelle officially became his daughter in heart. She gained admission to university to study aeronautical engineering. People were shocked. A girl from a forgotten village, aiming for the sky. But Michelle carried something stronger than intelligence. She carried survival. Every exam she passed felt like stepping farther away from the river. Every success felt like rewriting destiny. One evening during her final year at university, Michelle visited a hospital with Chief Benson's charity team. She watched poor patients begging for help. Some could not afford surgery, some were losing sight, some were dying quietly. Michelle stood frozen, her chest tightened. She remembered her father's face. She remembered his kindness. She remembered Donald calling her name when she was small. And suddenly, a thought struck her like lightning. What if my father is still alive? The idea shook her. She had never searched. She had never asked. Fear had stopped her. But now, she turned to Chief Benson. Dad, she said softly, when someone disappears, is it wrong to look for them again? Chief Benson studied her carefully. No, he replied, sometimes healing begins when we face unfinished stories. Michelle nodded slowly, her heart pounded. Because for the first time in years, she wanted to go back. And not as the girl who was thrown into a river, but as someone stronger, someone who survived, someone who could change lives. And at that exact moment, across town, Lola suddenly collapsed while trying to stand. Her body stiffened, her mouth twisted. A neighbor screamed, Stroke, call someone. Donald, blind and helpless, reached toward the sound. Lola! Lola! Chaos filled the small compound, and far away, Michelle felt an unexplained heaviness in her chest, as if destiny had just started moving again. The ambulance siren screamed through the narrow streets of the community. Donald sat outside the house, his walking stick trembling in his hand. Lola! Lola, answer me, he cried into the darkness that had become his world. Neighbors rushed around him. She cannot move her left side, one woman shouted. Her mouth is bent, another said. Where will we get money for hospital? Donald's hands shook. I cannot see. I cannot work. God, what is happening to us? He whispered. Lola lay inside the ambulance, half of her body stiff, her eyes wide with fear. For the first time in years, she was not in control. Her lips tried to form words, but only broken sounds came out. In that moment, the memory returned. The bridge. Michelle's hands hanging, the rip of cloth. Lola's good hand twitched weakly. The ambulance drove off. Meanwhile, in Warri, Michelle stood at the entrance of a newly completed building with a large sign in front. The Benson Hope Foundation, medical support for the needy reporters gathered around. Cameras flashed. Chief Benson stood beside her proudly. You built this so quickly, he said softly. Michelle smiled. It's not mine alone, she replied. It's for people who cannot afford treatment. She paused. For people who think nobody sees them. Chief Benson looked at her knowingly. He understood the unspoken words. Michelle took the microphone. When I was younger, she began carefully, someone saved my life. Today, I want this foundation to save others. The crowd clapped, but her heart was beating for a different reason. She had finally asked questions about her past. A former neighbor had confirmed it quietly. Her father, Donald, was alive, blind, poor, struggling. Michelle had gone silent for a long time after hearing it. Now she knew what she needed to do. That same afternoon, 2 community women arrived at the foundation gate with a weak, paralyzed woman on a stretcher and a blind man holding a stick. Please help us, one woman begged the receptionist. They have no money. Michelle happened to be walking past. She froze. Her breath disappeared. The blind man's head tilted slightly as if trying to sense where he was. His voice trembled. Please, my wife needs treatment. Michelle's knees almost gave way. That voice. She would know it anywhere. Dad, she whispered before she could stop herself, but Donald could not see her. He only heard footsteps. Who is there? He asked gently. Lola lay stiff on the stretcher. Her eyes moved slowly. Then she saw Michelle. Alive, standing tall, dressed in confidence. For a second, Lola thought she was seeing a ghost. Michelle stepped forward slowly, her heart shaking. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply turned to the doctors. Admit them immediately, she said calmly. Full treatment, no delay. Donald bowed his head gratefully. Thank you, Ma, he said humbly. He had no idea. Lola's good hand began to tremble violently. Because she knew, and she understood something terrifying in that moment. The teenage girl she pushed into the river was now the woman deciding whether she would live, and Michelle had not yet said who she was. Night settled quietly over the Benson Hope Foundation. Hospital machines beeped softly. Nurses moved in calm rhythm through the corridors. Outside, the city lights glowed like distant stars. Inside Ward 12, Donald lay on his hospital bed after surgery preparation. Doctors had already confirmed what Michelle suspected. His blindness could be corrected with a delicate operation. Lola lay on another bed across the room, her body weak from stroke. Her eyes never leaving Michelle whenever she entered. Michelle stood outside the ward for a long time before walking in. Her heels clicked softly against the floor. Donald turned his head toward the sound. Is that the kind woman helping us? He asked gently. Michelle's chest tightened. Yes, she replied quietly. Her voice shook despite her effort to stay composed. Donald smiled faintly. God will bless you. You saved people you don't even know. Michelle swallowed hard. People I don't know. She moved closer. The years disappeared in her mind. The nights her father carried her on his shoulders, the laughter before her mother Sandra died, the warmth she once knew. I only helped someone who deserved help, she said. Donald sighed deeply. I failed my daughter, he whispered suddenly. If I had protected her better, she would still be alive. Michelle froze. Tears gathered instantly. You loved her? She asked softly. With everything, Donald answered. Michelle was my light. The words broke her. She dropped to her knees beside his bed. Then open your eyes tomorrow, she whispered, voice trembling, and look for your light again. Donald smiled sadly, not understanding. The surgery happened the next morning. Hours passed slowly. Michelle sat beside Chief Benson in the waiting area, her hands clasped tightly. "You are shaking," he said gently. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted. "What if he hates me for disappearing?" Chief Benson shook his head. "Love does not disappear because of time." Finally, the doctor came out smiling. The surgery was successful. Michelle's breath released in a rush she didn't realize she held. Later that evening, Donald slowly opened his eyes. Light flooded back into his world. Blurred shapes became clearer. Colors returned. The first thing he saw was the ceiling. Then the nurse. Then a woman standing quietly near the door. Tall, eye-confident, tears in her eyes. He frowned slightly. Something about her felt familiar. Michelle stepped closer. Her voice barely came out. "Daddy." Donald blinked. The sound hit him before recognition did. His breathing stopped. "No," he whispered. Michelle knelt before him. "It's me." Silence filled the room. Donald's hands trembled as he touched her face, slowly, carefully, as if afraid she would disappear. "Michelle," he whispered again. She nodded, crying openly now. Donald screamed, not in pain, but in overwhelming emotion. He pulled her into a tight embrace. "My daughter! My daughter!" Both of them cried without shame. Years of loss melted into one moment. Across the room, Lola watched, her face drained of color. Reality crushed her completely. Michelle stood up after a while and turned toward Lola. Their eyes met. No anger, no shouting, only quiet truth. Michelle spoke calmly. "I arranged your treatment too." Lola's lips trembled. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but words refused to come. Shame swallowed her whole. The girl she pushed toward death had chosen mercy instead of revenge. Donald looked confused. "What happened?" Michelle hesitated. Then she told him everything. The bridge, the push, the lie. Donald's face changed slowly from confusion to disbelief to heartbreak. He turned toward Lola. "You did this?" Lola cried silently, unable to deny it. Donald covered his face and wept. And not from anger, from sorrow. That night, Michelle arranged for them to return home after treatment. She provided money, medication, and care support without hesitation. Before leaving, Donald held her hands tightly. "You became greater than the pain given to you," he said proudly. Michelle smiled softly. "I learned kindness from you." Lola could not meet her eyes. Before dawn the next morning, the neighborhood woke to screams. Neighbors gathered outside Donald's house. Lola had taken her own life during the night. She left no letter. Only silence, only regret. When Michelle received the call, she stood still for a long time. No triumph came, only sadness. Because forgiveness heals the victim. But sometimes guilt destroys the offender. Michelle closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. Then she turned toward Chief Benson, toward her future, toward the life she had built from survival. She was no longer the girl hanging above a river. She was the woman who saved lives, and though pain shaped her story, mercy became her legacy. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.